Hello, everyone. I just made sure that we started recording. This is another episode of the Unisolve Question, a YouTube show and podcast about lawyers and litigators. Specifically, litigators is what I'm interested in particular because I'm a litigator. And I have an absolutely amazing litigator here with me today. Her name is Erin Durant. Without further ado, I want to ask Erin a question. I don't want to give an introduction because I think a lot of people already know Erin. She's not only a well-known litigator, she's also an influencer on social media. But here's a question for you, Erin, that I think will help our listeners and viewers know you better. If I were to ask your closest friend, who is Erin Durant, what would they say?
That's a good question. And, a lot of my closest friends are outside of the practice of law. I like to stay connected to people that I met before law came and largely took over most of my life. But I think my closest friends would describe me, first as an athlete, or at least now a former athlete. I was a very competitive softball player. It was a passion of mine growing up. I played through university. I continued a few years while I was a lawyer. And it really is sort of something I enjoy most. I like to give back now, coaching in the sport and promoting the sport as I have been on social media the past few weeks. I think, a lot of people would say that. And I think I'm also known at times to be a little bit of a troublemaker in terms of, pushing the agenda and not being shy to say certain things that maybe other people are afraid to say.
I know that you recently celebrated your birthday and you also started your own practice, your ex-BLG partner. So you've practiced law for almost 9 years, if I'm not mistaken. And my question is, did you start your own practice as a gift to yourself for your birthday?
No, the timing was sort of coincidental. Although I had in my mind that June 1st, being almost halfway through the year would be a good time to do it. But no, it wasn't my birthday present to myself, although it feels like it now, but it wasn't intentional.
So why did you start your own practice then?
It's an interesting question. And when I left BLG, I think I knew that I was ready to leave the giant firm environment, which is one where I always felt a little bit different, a little bit like it wasn't my long-term home, perhaps. And, I spent a lot of time thinking about what I wanted to do and where I wanted to go. And I spoke with a lot of different people and a lot of different firms and some amazing options. And, I kind of felt like I needed some time and space just to really be able to do what I wanted to do and to figure out my career and what makes me happy. And, I went into it setting it up fairly economically. I have a small office I rent from a mentor here in town. I have a lot of investment in tech. And, the idea was I'd be able to service my clients relatively economically and perhaps only for a short amount of time while I figure out, what comes next, perhaps. But within a few weeks of being at this and doing the work required to prepare, I'm now much more all in and I'm just loving it. So, it's not like I ever started out in law thinking I'd ever be able to do this, but I've really enjoyed the experience so far.
What is the best thing about it? I'm curious because that's literally all I've done while I have been a lawyer. And I only worked at a firm when I was an articling student. So it's hard for me to imagine working at a law firm. And that's why I'm really curious, what is it about your own practice that you, someone who only worked at a firm before find the best?
I think the freedom to do things quickly and the way you want um, is quite liberating, especially coming from a very large national firm where there's multiple tiers of management, multiple levels of decision making. Those firms aren't always best suited to move quickly on certain things or to accommodate different ideas. Even something as simple for me as deciding to get a computer program for my business, that decision may take me a day or two, including the time required to go through the onboarding process, which sometimes annoys me. But something like that at a large firm, because they're buying it on scale, it could take a year or more, by the time they do a focus group and consult all the partners and sometimes there's different tweaks that they want the software program to do that may not already be embedded. So it's just nice to be able to make a decision and move on from it. And it's just also nice. I felt like in a established firm, as someone who is a bit different, who likes to push the agenda and try different things, that it's a lot harder to do that in something that's already established than to just build something that's already, in your vision, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely. I see a sign behind you that says play ball. Is this a message to witnesses that you cross-examine on Zoom?
No, that's just simply a gift from my mother.
Not,
But
not everything is related to cross-examinations, you mean, in this life?
No. And but behind that, there's a plant that was a gift that my former legal assistant at BLG made sure stayed alive the entire pandemic, because it was in the BLG offices. And behind that's actually a home plate, a softball home plate that was painted by an artist, and it was a fundraiser for the Canadian national team. So I kind of keep all that stuff there, to remind me of a few of my passions and my friends.
Amazing. You just started your firm. I know you're loving it. You love the independence. You love quick decision making. But I also want to bring everyone's attention to the fact that you already have people on payroll, right? So you have an associate. You have a wonderful associate, and I understand you. Well, that's your employee, I think, right? You will correct me if I'm wrong. And then I think you work with a law clerk, and you have more staff. So this is really fascinating. How did you pull this off? Being responsible not only for yourself, but also assuming responsibility for others, almost from day one. There are many sub questions there. So did you bring a book of business with you? How do you get clients? A lot of lawyers, most lawyers in Ontario are small or solo lawyers. These questions are fundamental to them. So very, very interesting to hear your answers.
Yeah, so the associate is starting very, very soon. As soon as she gets called to the bar and gets her magical email that arrives on a Friday, maybe it will come today, who knows. And then I have a summer student who I found on Twitter. I'm sharing her with a criminal law firm. So she's part of the 100 Interns project that the Criminal Lawyers Association and Peter Sankoff had started up. So for her, the overall cost to me isn't very high because she's with me part-time. And the law clerk, actually, I haven't publicly announced who it is yet, but it's a woman who I worked with extensively in the past. And she decided that when she saw the announcement that, she wanted to come and work for me. And really, I'm of the belief that having good legal staff is the secret to my personal success. When I don't have good legal staff, I don't do well. I spend too much time worrying. So whenever I found a good law clerk who wanted to work with me, I'd rather pay her than pay myself for the first few months. So that's sort of the team. It wasn't really meant to be a larger team. And I didn't know if it would be that when I first decided to leave, because when you leave a large firm or any firm, there's rules of professional conduct that need to be followed about, the process for notifying clients and, the decision being up to the client. And it was really important for me to maintain, a best of relationship as you can with a firm when you're leaving. So I didn't reach out to my main clients before I left. I had a good idea which ones would naturally come with me just based on the fact that I was the only one in the office with that particular expertise and the only one with the relationship. But I had one large client that provides me with regular work, a significant amount that also requires junior lawyer support and law clerk support. And it was amazing to hear that client decided to come with me, but based on people being away on vacation and other things, I didn't find out that they were coming until I think 3 days before I departed. So that sort of changed my plans in terms of hiring needs and everything. But yeah, I think what I have is a small practice is different than what a lot of solos and smalls have, in that I'm not starting out and having to build something brand new and bring in new business. And it's actually been something I've been struggling with, and maybe you have some ideas since you've run your own firm for a while, is a lot of people have told me when you first start your own firm, people are going to want to help you, and people are going to want to send you work. And I don't need any work. When I did the announcement, I said, don't send me any work, but I'm still getting people wanting to send me work, which is a good problem to have. But I'm also trying to, to grow at a comfortable pace and to, maintain the type of practice I want to maintain, which is, fewer quality clients, not high volume, not feeling like I'm on the hamster wheel going 100 miles per hour all the time. So, there may be more growth in the future, but for now, I'm comfortable largely maintaining my current client base. And once the associate comes on board, hopefully getting her involved in a few other things, and maybe she'll get those referrals depending on what it is.
Do you think there is a pressure on lawyers to be busy and to be big and to work all the time and to create an impression that they have absolutely no spare time and that everybody wants them? Do you think there is a huge pressure on lawyers, or is it just an urban myth in the profession?
I think there's a big pressure, and I think particularly in large firms or firms that have very set targets in terms of hours expectation, I feel like lawyers are always either way too busy beyond comfort, or they're panicking that they don't have enough work. And very few people are in this in-between state where they're just sort of happy with what they have. And I say big firms primarily because that's where I've been the last 6 years, and that's my main experience. It could be the same for other firms as well. And I also think that there's been a little bit of an image with lawyers wanting to project externally just how busy they are. And I don't know whether it's an intentional thing that people project, or it's the fact that we are so busy and we're just venting on it, on social media about working late or working on the weekend. I kind of think it's probably more of the venting. But I think what it does is other people see, okay, well, there's this very successful lawyer, and I see that they're working every night and every weekend, and maybe that's what I need to do to be successful. So I think that it's definitely there, and it comes both, I think, from the firm environment, but then also just by observing our peers and observing what's going on social media.
Right. Another thing that another badge of honor, I guess, that lawyers really like to wear is the number of trials that they did. And I'm talking about civil litigation litigators here. I'm not talking about criminal lawyers for whom trials are an everyday experience or an every week experience. I'm talking about civil litigators. And I guess there is a reason for it. Civil litigators don't do trials as much as they used to anymore. And maybe there is a good reason that they don't do trials anymore, because it's a little bit crazy to spend $100,000 to resolve certain disputes, or $200,000. But you did 3 jury trials, correct?
Yeah, while I was at BLG, I've done 3 civil jury trials with others, and I was involved in some other trials before I joined BLG when I was at my first firm in the career in Barrie.
So what separates a lawyer that never did a civil trial in this from a lawyer who did a civil trial? What separates that experience? We all know, I mean, I guess every lawyer, even the lawyer who practiced for a month or a couple of months after their call, will know something about motion practice, will know something about passive aggressive letters, right? You know, things that accompany everyday civil litigation practice. But what is it about trials
I
that
think what
is
it
special?
Yeah,
Sorry.
I think what it's done for me, that the more trials I've been involved with, is it's really changed my perspective just on the entire litigation process. Because, what I've observed while you're preparing the case for trial or even in trial, that a lot of times it comes down to very basic things like, what was written in the retainer letter for the expert, what documents were or were not provided to certain witnesses, what admissions were obtained at discovery, which were key. And I think when you approach the case like every case you have might end up in a trial, you pay a lot more attention to things that are actually important, like some of those details I just went through. And for me, at least, I pay far less attention to the noise. So the silly letters that sometimes get sent, or the posturing, or some of the motions that I question. What's the point of this motion when we can just have this dealt with by the pretrial judge, or the trial judge? So I think it does change your perspective on litigation. And I think it's unfortunate that more trials aren't able to go ahead for smaller matters, and that more lawyers aren't trained to do trials, because I think the lawyers that do have that trial experience, at least from what I've seen, they tend to take a more practical view of the litigation to get there. And at least, that's been my practice. But, as you say, most cases will never go to trial. So some lawyers are extremely good and extremely efficient at dealing with those cases that are, as you said, 100,000, 200,000, and just getting them done in a quick and economical way. And I'm not here to say that settling those cases is a bad thing. Going ahead to trial with those things often don't make sense. And most of the trial reported decisions that you'll see, and the reason I was able to go to trial so often, was I did work for very large insurance companies primarily, and they have very deep pockets and are prepared to pay for a trial, but most litigants can't, and probably shouldn't.
What is Erin Durant's playbook to prepare for trial?
So I have a trial preparation checklist, and I actually don't know the exact origins of it. It was something that my old firm used before BLG. I don't think it was created by that firm, or if it was, adopted from a CPD program. The lawyers at that firm also had origins with another firm that's very well known as being a litigation specific firm. But the checklist was very handy because it had in one place, all of the rules in terms of deadlines, suggestions of what should be done well, leading up to the trial, leading up to the pre-trial. So I don't use that checklist, to the letter anymore in terms of making sure I'm, writing something down and assigning a task to everyone, because I'm now comfortable enough with the process that a lot of it, kind of takes care of itself. But it's nice to have there as a reminder that, okay, have we thought about the request to admit yet? Okay, are we going to do it? Okay, who's going to do it? When's it going to be served? What types of things do we want in there? And what are the timings for serving the Evidence Act notices? And there's always issues in personal injury litigation in particular about, whether it's a business record, whether it's going to be a report, whether you're going to file a report or call the witness. So it's good to start having those discussions relatively early. And I find that's an area where if you don't do a lot of trials, you might get bogged down in the details and not recognize just how much work some of that stuff is. So having that list is sort of my safety net, so to speak.
Do you think that technology leveled the playing field enough now that a solo lawyer can run a complex trial that before only a large firm could do?
I think it's either there or it's getting there. I think the future of litigation in particular is you're going to have a lot more, almost like the traditional barrister style that you have in the UK, where you have, the litigator whose job it is to litigate, and around them they can build whatever team they need. And I'm a believer that no law firm, despite what their marketing may imply, has all of the best lawyers in every single subject matter. Such marketing is just not accurate. So one thing I want to do at my firm is, if a big file were to come in, I know I could handle much of the litigation and the court work, but I could align myself with subject matter experts. I could hire a firm that specializes in documentary discovery, so I don't have to have the software, I don't have to deal with that work. And by assembling the team that fits the case for each case, I think I would be able to, and other firms would be able to compete with big firms. I think where you get into some issues is on the truly massive litigation where, you may have 10 lawyers working on it for, a couple years at a time. I've actually never worked on those types of cases. It was never anything I was brought involved with at BLG. But I think there's always going to be a role for that type of gigantic case to probably reside with a big firm. And it suits them well too, because they also do the other corporate side work for that client too. So I think for most things you'd be able to compete as a solo or small or boutique. You look at Lenzner Slatt, for example, in Toronto. They're now quite big, but they've really just grown organically over time, and they were doing the best litigation right from day one with a relatively small team. So I think it's possible, and technology and the ability to work remotely and to share access to your files from wherever you are is a game changer for a lot of lawyers.
If I'm not mistaken, Lenzner's came from McCarthy's, or Alan Lenzner himself, and then maybe his co-founders also came from McCarthy's, as actually many great litigators, right, did. Many of them came from McCarthy's. So it seems like McCarthy's is an incubator of sorts for good litigators. You came from BLG, you're an ex-BLG partner. I know other great litigators who came from big firms, and I'm talking about only the civil or even rather commercial litigation bars. So for example, the personal injury bar is a whole different world, whole different universe. Can a great commercial litigator originate on their own without growing in a big name firm?
I think they can't. And, and I'll tell you one story just about my former mentor and good friend, Dan Dooley. So he isn't a well-known lawyer necessarily outside of Barrie, Northern Ontario. And some people that are involved with the Advocate Society obviously would know Dooley, but he's probably one of the best litigators I had ever seen. And he started out, you mentioned the personal injury bar. He started out at a firm in London. He was at Siskins, which is still around. He moved to Barrie, ended up eventually working at Roger Oatley's firm, which is now obviously known as the creme de la creme of personal injury litigation. But back in those days, Oatley did everything. He acted for insurance companies, he acted for professional liability insurers, he was just a litigator. So, Dan grew up working with Roger and Jim Vigmond and that whole team. And ultimately, there was a split with the firm because I think Roger decided and saw the writing on the wall with contingency fees that he could make a whole lot of money by just specializing in that area. But, Dan had a phenomenal practice with great clients, loyal clients, large insurance companies. He was on big commercial cases. He did appeals, and I think he built that without being in a traditional firm. But he didn't build it just from starting out right from law school by himself, working his way up. He did have firms and mentors along the way. So, I think it would be a very big challenge to do it entirely on your own, from law school, hanging the shingle and really trying to just fight and claw your way up. I don't want to say it's impossible, but, as running your own small firm, the hardest part is getting the work and getting the experience. And I think it's helpful to have mentorship around and some clients to get some experience with. So not impossible, but hard. But I know definitely people have done it and done it well.
I looked at your website, and besides a few other innovative things that you're doing, I'm noticing this membership plan.
Yeah.
That you put there, and it really caught my eye. It's $3.99 every month, and it just it looks like one of those startups that have subscriptions for their SaaS products, software as a service or something like that. So is it lawyer as a service, or it's not litigation as a service here? Because I don't think litigation is included in that plan. Tell us more about this plan. What is this? I saw something like that before, but only in one lawyer who is a huge innovator. He's in crypto, Addison Cameron Huff, and he's not a litigator. And that's really his model. He has subscription plans, and he has a limit. He can only take so many clients, subscribe so many clients. Tell us about this membership plan, please.
So this membership plan is targeted to a relatively small portion of the clients that I serve. So in addition to being a litigator, I also have this side niche, so to speak, in sports work, which sometimes also rolls over into doing work for other not-for-profit organizations, usually in the sport space. And a lot of what they need is, basic stuff, training for their staff, upgrading of their policies. They don't have a huge budget for legal services. And what tends to happen is because they don't have a huge budget for legal services, they're afraid to pick up the phone. And, and then they pick up the phone too late, and then they're in a big mess, and it costs them a lot of money to get out of the mess. So the idea of this subscription service is to cater to those clients so you can give them certain benefits on an ongoing basis, like training, like customized, monthly updates on what's going on in the law or certain cases specifically designed for them. Um, and yeah, it was a bit of a creative thing I wanted to do. I had spoken to some of my clients in advance about whether it would be something of interest to them, and really we're working it out together in terms of developing even the price point and different things. I have one client who's agreed to, we're going to do similar stuff for them, but just on an hourly basis for a few months. And then depending on how much time's required, we might adjust the pricing. But it's really just something that I thought might be a benefit to clients in terms of predictability and pricing. And also just subscription services have become such a common way to provide service outside of law. People are used to paying subscriptions for different things, software, apps, gym memberships, online memberships. So, I'm going to give it a try. I literally just launched that 2 days ago. So it's not like I'm rolling in money from the subscription service, but I'm going to see how it works and maybe tweak it. And if that plan works, I might be able to develop similar things, but I can't picture how it would work from a strictly litigation services perspective, just because litigation needs are so unpredictable. But we'll see.
I know that you're also consult, or at least intend to consult other lawyers about trials or to help them prepare for trials. Tell us, please, about that.
Yeah, that's something I always wanted to do from the beginning of starting my own business, because I know so many lawyers have never run a civil trial. A lot of smaller personal injury firms in particular, they run quite lean in terms of staff. And then if they have a big trial, it becomes a pretty big issue in the office in terms of everyone having to be at the trial and everything else sort of getting left behind. So I already have some clients, one in particular with a big trial coming up early next year. So I've agreed to assist on that case. It's likely to proceed because of just the nature of the dispute and the parties involved. And I'm quite flexible in how I deal with fees in those circumstances. I've had some other lawyers reach out in terms of what I would do and would I do it on contingency. I don't think I ever would, to be honest, because I have no control over the case and selecting the case or even getting the case ready for trial, really, because all the discoveries are done, the expert reports are done by the time I get involved. So the one of the clients that I have, it was best for that client to pay me a monthly fee leading up to the trial that I would still get even if the trial settles, but then they're not paying me, $100,000 in 1 month to do the trial. It also makes me available to help with the pretrial work in terms of the research that might be required, the Evidence Act notices, dividing up the witnesses in terms of what part of the case I'll handle, introducing me to the client. So I think that model is going to work quite well. And other people who I've chatted with who don't have trials coming up right now and are interested in the service, for them, they've indicated that a pure hourly model just might work better for them. So again, it's something that's new and I'm quite flexible in trying to work out what would work best.
I want to talk about Ottawa in conclusion of our conversation. And I know that you are in the Ottawa area. You live in the Ottawa area. Do you live in Ottawa itself or do you live in the suburbs?
So technically I live in the city of Ottawa, but Ottawa is a big sprawling city. So I live in a community called Vars, which is on the extreme edge of the city. It's basically rural Ottawa. And if you went one road over from where I live, you would no longer be in Ottawa. So I'm barely in the city.
Your office is in a community near Ottawa, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yeah, yeah. So, my office is really at my house, to be honest, but I didn't want to use my house as my business address, primarily because for one of my clients, I deal with a lot of self-represented litigants, and I didn't want them coming to my house.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I have a rented office space in a community called Russell, and it's at another law firm called Van Dusen Law with Mike Van Dusen. He's a well-known lawyer here in Ottawa. He's been practicing for a number of years. So he agreed to sort of let me use a desk in his office, and I can go there and work if I want. I think I've been there twice, but really it's a place for my mail to go, and he does have some other services that I don't there. He has a large photocopier and the binding machine in the event I ever need that stuff again. So yeah, so I'm in Bars. The office is in Russell. My associate lives in Toronto, and my law clerk lives in Barrie.
That's amazing. This is the future.
Yeah.
Is Ottawa litigation bar really like a family or something? Because they all sound so friendly, giving offices to each other and things like that. Doesn't sound like
Yeah,
Toronto.
it's a very nice place to practice law. My list of people to be careful of and avoid, would probably fit on one hand and wouldn't even take up the entire hand. So yeah, it's a community. So many people, when they learned I was going on my own, wanted to help out, offered me space, offered me, different opportunities even within their firm, on an eat what you kill model, so many different things. So yeah, I love practicing law in Ottawa. It's good work, it's good people, and it really is a good community.
Are you originally from Ottawa?
No, I'm originally from a small town called Prescott, Ontario, which is roughly halfway between Ottawa and Kingston.
I see. So this is really still your home area or your home region, at least, right?
Yeah, yeah. And it's close for my husband as well. He's originally from the Ottawa Valley,
Right.
Cobden, another small town. So Ottawa is sort of a good midway point for us to be close to our families.
Well, I always have a good time when I talk to lawyers from Ottawa. I can say that. And I already interviewed, I think, several lawyers from Ottawa, and a lot of people on Twitter that I talk to are from Ottawa. So there's obviously something about Ottawa. Anyway, this has been such a tremendous pleasure, Erin. I really appreciate it. I learned so much, and part of the reason I do these interviews is to learn my own benefit, but I'm sure that our viewers and listeners learned a lot too. I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much, Erin.
Thank you so much for having me. I enjoyed this as well.